Hello! My name is Laura and I'm a Notion enthusiast. I'm so happy to have you here. If you are new, welcome, and if you're returning, hello, hi, thanks for hanging around, and I hope you're excited for this video. I'm going to be talking about Notion not just on mobile, but across iPads, laptops versus desktops, and stuff like that. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for more future content and lots of fun stuff in the making. There is a new feature that I just wanted to mention, Notion projects, and I'm planning on putting out a video for that and some of the tricks that I am working into Notion projects. So if you're interested in that, please let me know down in the comments. So for context, during graduate school, Notion definitely got me through that program, and I think there was no other way to handle it besides using a tool like Notion. And so I never really thought that Notion was usable on mobile. Oh, y'all. Hey Mia, come here. Sweet girl. Okay, well, that is my cat Mia. So I never really thought Notion was usable on mobile. I always felt like my setups were very column heavy, and even when Notion mobile would stack that on top of each other, the focus was off. That's why I felt like I felt Notion was best on desktop. I think that still holds true a little bit, but I just really was missing out on using it on my phone, on the go, on iPads and stuff. And so I'm making this video because I've recently had the time and put the effort towards reworking my current system that I have, my current template, and I'll be showing you ways that you can rework your working systems into mobile, iPad, laptop versus desktop, all of that fun stuff. So if you're interested, I hope you'll stick around and let's get started. Before we look into the specific views that I have for each device, I would like to bring up two questions that I think everyone should ask themselves before trying to tailor their current setup on a new device. The first question is, what makes this device different? So straight up with mobile, we can see already that it's a vertical screen. It is a portrait orientation most of the time. There's no really way to flip it horizontally to get a different view. Maybe that would be cool in the future, but for now, I think for everyone, it makes most sense to scroll and to have things in a single column. For desktops, however, let's say you have an ultra-wide monitor. If you have an ultra-wide monitor, there are so many things you can do with columns and everything like that. The second question I would like to ask is what your most used features are on that device. For example, on my iMac, I really like to click and drag events. I love clicking and dragging with my mouse. It's so easy to reschedule events, shift a bunch of things over, highlight, and then bulk edit events. On my phone, I kind of am limited to either selecting checkboxes for editing multiple events or simply editing one event at a time. And I think it would be helpful once you've figured out what makes your device different. It's helpful to see now what are the most popular uses for that device. And I know I mentioned there were two questions, but I wanted to add a bonus question in case it is helpful for anyone. So the bonus question is, what kind of things am I doing on this device? For example, am I organizing my notes? Am I categorizing ideas and giving every event detail, every idea more categorical detail? Hey Mia, I know. Or am I actually capturing ideas from scratch? Like any random idea, am I on the go? Do I have that idea and want to jot it down? What am I doing per device? These are all kind of important questions that you should ask yourself if you do get to this point where you want to further tailor your setups. Okay, now that we got my favorite questions and the bonus question out of the way, let's start with biggest to smallest. I'll be outlining this video starting with my iMac, going towards my MacBook Pro, my iPad setup, which is, by the way, an 11-inch. Yeah, just for context. And finally, my phone, which is probably my favorite one that I've come up with so far. Let's head on over to my iMac and see what things look like there. This is my iMac version, so there's going to be icons for every page. So this is the iMac setup, and right away I can tell you the biggest difference between the iMac and my other devices is that it has obviously the widest and biggest screen out of all of them. It leaves the most room for multitasking, and columns are my favorite thing, so I can really take advantage of that here. And Yeah, we can go on into it. So the second question was my most used features on this device. I think my most used feature like this would be buttons that open the side view pages so that I can see my dashboard while I'm editing a page. For example, in Scratch Paper, what I'm hovering over now, I can add a note, and I can still see my calendar. I can move this over, I can move it back, and then add a note based off of other information on a different page. And I can view today's notes also in a side view. We can see that I created 2 things today, some thoughts that I won't go into. But yeah, if you're interested in how I made this, please let me know, and I can kind of share the inner workings of those buttons. It's pretty simple, but I can make a buttons video if people would think that's interesting. So yeah. The other most used feature that I would say I have on this iMac is moving things around. Highlighting, selecting, and moving things around. Like this, even though I do not want to do that. I kind of wish we had an option to keep the dates relative, but that's okay. But yeah, and for my bonus question, what am I usually doing on this device? So on this device, I'm typically sitting down because it's a desktop. I'm typically sitting down for a long time. So I would say I'm organizing, taking, and categorizing notes. And it's important to me that I have that functionality front and center. One of the things that I really like doing is making use of my Scratch Paper page. When I go into Scratch Paper and I'm clicking on all of these things that I have to do, on my iMac, I will most likely be categorizing those things. I'll be giving them tags. But anyway, as you can see, this is the kind of stuff that I'm going to be doing as I'm sitting down at my iMac. Another main feature that I would use on my iMac is organizing my tasks inbox. Right now, I don't have much in my inbox. It's pretty straightforward. This is just a place where I can easily add, like, for example, what do I have to do? Attach hypoallergenic earring findings to clay pieces. That's something that I don't know when I'm going to do, but I have to do it eventually, so it's in my inbox. As you can see, the main focus of using my iMac is that I have a lot of options available to me. Most of the stuff is front and center because the center is so big that I can fit a lot of stuff on it. But yeah, I have some main pages. I'll just untoggle these so you get a view for what kind of fits on this page, where I could add even more things. Yeah, let me know if you'd want a video on how I use my second brain. It's definitely not as feature packed as some of the second brains that you may have already seen on YouTube, but it works for me. It's more simple, and I think it's still very effective at capturing all of the information that we take in a day. So yeah. Before we move on, I'd like to mention a feature that I think is really important for this setup of Notion on different devices. As I hover over my blocks, you can see that there's synchronized blocks by the red outline that they have on them. This red outline means that this is a synchronized block, and this is really important because these are the blocks that I get to move around, but stay consistent and stay synchronized throughout all of my views. So for example, my sticky note, it's a pretty simple block at its core. It's not a database, it's just some text. That's the synced blocks thing, as we'll see in different views. Those are very important. Let's move on to my MacBook Pro. Welcome. What you're seeing is my MacBook Pro screen. So I currently have it on the iMac view. As you can see, if I scroll down here, nothing too bad. So when you open the calendar, you can see that it's not as neat of a view. The calendar monthly looks okay, but I just feel like the weekly has a lot of vertical white space that isn't being used up. So I'll show you what my MacBook Pro setup is by clicking on this. This is another tip I want to get into before I forget. I created links to all of the pages on every page. Something that I would recommend is starting a synchronized block to house all of those links so that as you're adding your mobile versus your desktop versus any other device you might have, that keeps updating across devices and you don't do what I do and just edited that block or that feature 4 times. So I'll just go on over to here where it says MacBook Pro, and you'll see that now there is a laptop icon and the outline is a little bit different. These headings are now, I think they're heading 3s. Yeah. So this is a heading 3 block, and everything else is, there's only 2 columns here, for example. The synchronized block that used to be at the right side is now on the left side since there are only 2 columns. And still we've got these toggles, calendar. Usually on desktop I'll say is that I should rearrange these because I tend to look at my full calendar on my desktop. I just think it's a nicer view. The weekly view, one thing I wish that Notion would kind of roll out is having that vertical space be a little bit more flexible. It'd be nice to have the fewer tasks you have, the shorter the week view is. Either way, this is what we've got going on. Before I get too ahead of myself, I wanted to mention what makes this device different. Right away, what we know about laptops versus desktops is that one of these is a lot more portable. I can take my MacBook to a coffee shop, I can take it to the airport, I can't really bring the whole monitor with me, but still, I would say that every time I am using my laptop, it is for maybe not as long of a period as the iMac, but it is still a dedicated work session. So there's room for multitasking on here as well, but there's not as much as there is on the iMac. The other difference I wanted to mention is that I don't really use a dedicated mouse when I'm on my laptop. When I'm using the trackpad, it can be a lot harder to like click and drag, especially if I'm trying to drag for a long time. It's just not as easy and it's not as straightforward as using a mouse is. And for my bonus question, what am I usually doing on this device? So here I am usually jotting down ideas and I'm refining them in these databases. I won't go into my main pages in this video, but let me know if you'd be interested in seeing that and I will be happy to share. For the next device, I'm going to move on to my iPad, which is again an 11-inch screen, and you'll be seeing it now. Welcome to my iPad. What makes this device different? Right away, we know that iPads are touch screens, so lots of clicking, lots of scrolling, but it's mostly one click at a time. You're either scrolling or you're selecting, so it's a little bit more limited. The other thing is that this is a much smaller screen than the iMac and even the MacBook Pro. We're forcing the Notion workspace to be a little bit more organized. I used a lot of toggles. I love toggles because they can keep the setup looking relatively clean while still retaining a lot of the information that is set there. Speaking of toggles, that kind of answers my next question. What is my most used feature of Notion on this device? For me, it would definitely have to be the toggles. I'm always clicking around, seeing like my calendar, looking at the coming week in my inbox. I do not have the calendar views on this device because of the layout. If I was going to view the calendar, I would most likely view it as an entire page instead of clicking through views that are inclusive of other blocks. As always, you can still see my synchronized blocks are here and they're not going anywhere. And one thing I haven't touched on yet is the use of linked databases. So if you go and open up my 2023 tasks, what you can see here is that this is actually part of the laptop. I would say one of the limitations of using this kind of system is that the breadcrumbs that are here at the top of the page are not necessarily going to be as seamless as if you have everything centralized on one page. So if I click on iPad, there I am again. But linked databases and having different views for every device is something that I would recommend to anybody trying to do this, and something I find very helpful and also fun for me to experiment with, see what views work better on which devices and things like that. Finally, let's move on over to my phone. What makes this device different? It's the most portable, it's the smallest, and most importantly is that it is in portrait mode. The other thing that we can use from the phone is dictation. This is probably my most used feature. To answer the second question, when I have my phone, I'm usually on the go, which is why I have my scratch paper as the first toggle that I have. And what's really important here is adding a page with a button. I don't want to have to go into a database to add a page. I want to just be able to click, add note, and then say test 3 this time. That's so creative. But anyway, as you can see, there are some tools here that mobile has. One of the things that I really like doing is asking AI some prompts. For example, let's figure out, build the outline of a skincare routine for someone with combination skin. So we'll click, AI will write, and it's pretty fun because you can get these very detailed replies and outputs from prompts that you're taking on the go. So I use AI on my phone a lot. I also use it on my other devices, But actually this is probably a good idea to actually label, because it's like a skincare outline and it's AI based. So anyway, the other thing that I would do frequently when I have my phone is I add tasks. So the second thing is my calendar, and I have it by coming week because usually that narrows it down quite a bit. But also my second view is my inbox. My biggest tip on the phone is that toggles are your friend. I just feel like it's the easiest way to separate a lot of different categories of notes and just have them all nice and wrapped up in their own sections. And yeah, that is my phone setup. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this kind of system. I know it is a little bit more involved than just having straight up a system that is easy to translate between devices. But I felt like if you do put in the effort to figure out what makes your device unique and what features are unique to your device, and then tailor your Notion setups that way, that it can really boost your productivity. It can really boost the pure enjoyment of using Notion. If you're anything like me, you like using Notion, period. Okay, back to the room, back to out of the screen recordings. I just wanted to recap kind of the points that I went through in this video. The main questions that I think everybody should ask themselves, I'll just include all three, including the bonus. What makes your device different? What are your most used features on that device? And finally, what are you usually doing on this device? I hope this video was helpful. Again, if you enjoyed watching, would like to see more of my tips and tricks on using Notion, leave me a comment. Let me know down below what you think, your thoughts. Thank you so much for hanging around to the end of this video. Subscribe if you found this content interesting. I'll be sure to put more Notion videos out. Thanks everyone. Bye.